ज्ञानाञ्जनाशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरोन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितंश्च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्ता राधा कान्ता नमस्तुते। तप्त काञ्चन गौरांगी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। नमो ओम विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमदे भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिधि नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशधारिणे। मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरों दीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्य ईश्वरम्। Hare Krishna. So before we proceed into chapter 12, I would like to know that how many of you have actually completed the quiz for chapter number 11. So I request all those participants, I can see 130 of us here. So those who have completed the quiz, kindly raise your hands there. So you have the option of raising hand. We request you to raise hand if you have completed the quiz for chapter 11. Okay, so 15, 16. So if you have completed, I'll repeat myself. If you have completed your quiz, there is an icon of raising hand. So please raise your hand. If you are finding it difficult, then you can type it in the chat box also if you are uncomfortable. So I have received 26 hands up and probably around 10.
Okay, same. They are not getting here.
Around 10, 12 messages. If you have raised hand, then you don't type in the chat box. Okay, so 26, 10, 36 out of 135. 36 out of 135. It's like really
25%. No.
25.
Yeah.
Less than, I think 20%, around 20%. So unfortunately, it is very, very bad performance on my part, on our part, because you could not complete the quiz for whatever reason. So I think we are unable to inspire you all enough to take the quiz. So, right?
That's true.
So we would like to know why you have not completed the quiz. Keter Raju sir has mentioned that he is traveling and he will be completing this week. Okay, so may I please request those of you, almost 100 of you who have not completed the quiz, kindly write to me after the class gets over. So kirti@studygita.com. Reason why you have not completed the quiz. Because I would like to know why. So either you write to me why you have not completed, or you complete the quiz and send me a message that you have completed the quiz. I'll be looking forward for your emails, because this statistics is like bad on my part. So please, I request you to send me a mail after the session. Here we are entering into chapter 12. We are talking about devotional service, and we would be actually completing 2/3 of Bhagavad Gita very shortly. And especially as we discussed in the beginning itself, that the middle 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita are the most important chapter. The crux of, or the essence is contained in these middle 6 chapters. So out of these middle 6 chapters, chapter number 12 is actually a summary of the other 5 chapters. So this chapter is summarized here. And Krishna glorifies the importance of devotional service. So we have read in chapter 7, 8, 9, 10, and finally in 11 also Krishna talks about devotional service. He often uses this word Ananya Bhakt. So who are dedicated to Krishna's pleasure without getting deviated anywhere here and there. So that is what we would be discussing in this chapter on devotional service. It's a small and very sweet chapter. As you can see, there are total 20 verses. So it's divided into 3 sections. The first section, actually the chapter begins with Arjuna's inquiry as who is better, personalist or impersonalist. And then in the balance 6 verses, Krishna answers that question, that what is the process of personalist, impersonalist, what is the destination, and who is better. The second section talks about the progressive stages of bhakti. So bhakti can also be done at different level. So that Krishna explains there, and in final last 7 verses, Krishna explains what are those qualities that make everyone dear, a devotee or a person dear to Krishna. So that is what is the third section.
And we also see that in previous 11 chapter, there was this astounding and astonishing form of the Lord, the universal form of the Lord. And we saw that how Arjun was so astonished, and later he became so fearful seeing that particular form. So Krishna again takes this opportunity in 12th chapter and he re-emphasizes bhakti, so that one should not get carried away by the universal form of the Lord. And one comes back and one understands that actually devotional service to the personal form, the two-handed form of the Lord, is the best, is the highest, and that is the opinion of the Supreme Lord.
Arjunuvacha evam satata yukta ye bhaktasvam parayupasate ye chapyaksharam avyaktam tesham ke yoga vittamaha. Arjun inquired, which are considered to be more perfect, those who are always properly engaged in your devotional service, or those who worship the impersonal Brahma, the unmanifested? So now there are 2 processes or 2 ways of approaching Krishna. Here Arjun is talking about these 2 ways, and both of them are transcendentalist, because both of them ultimately aspire to have a spiritual perfection. So both are transcendentalist. One category, they engage in devotional service, and the second one who worship the impersonal Brahma. So if you would notice there in the verse, Arjun has spoken who is more perfect. So now our English understanding is perfect itself is perfect. So how can somebody be less perfect and more perfect? But the point here is that anybody who is dedicating his life for the spiritual purpose. So that person is actually perfect. So both the processes are perfect, but out of the two, if one has to compare and contrast, then which one is better? So that is the question.
So, yes. So actually, this particular verse and this particular chapter, I want you, if you have little bit inclination also because of past conditioning, what we heard from whomever we heard from in the past about merging with the Supreme Lord, becoming one with the Supreme Lord, merging with Brahma Jyoti. What is the goal of life? I want to be liberated. I want to merge with Brahma Jyoti. So if any one of us even have iota of that conception, please be very attentive in today's session, because we're going to hear Krishna's opinion about this. And I hope and I pray that by the end of this session, we will remove that little bit of what desire it may be and throw it off, right? So that we become proper personalist and devotees of the Lord in the right sense. So we remove any of those misconceptions from our heart.
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Maya Veshamano Ye Mam Nityayukta Upasate Shraddhaya Parayopetas Te Me Yukta Tamamataha.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, those who fix their minds on my personal form and are always engaged in worshipping me with great and transcendental faith are considered by me to be the most perfect. This is Krishna's verdict. What are the points which Krishna is making here? Number one, he's saying that those who fix their mind on the personal form of the Lord. Their mind is absorbed in the Lord, two-handed form of the Lord. It's absorbed in the beauty of the Lord. It is absorbed in the wonderful, sweet pastimes of the Lord. It is absorbed in the teachings of the Lord. And while the mind is absorbed, what is the body and intelligence doing? It is engaged in worshipping Krishna. It is engaged in serving Krishna and following the instructions of the Lord. And all of this is happening, third point, with great and transcendental faith. So if these three things are there, then Krishna is saying they are the most perfect. So usually in school, classes or wherever, we always, at least there's a desire to be very good, right? 100% score, centum, score 100%. Krishna is explaining what is 100% according to him. So this is Krishna's final verdict. This is a time to remove that whatever desire we may have in heart for an impersonal inclination, merging with the Lord, being one with the Lord, merging with the Brahma Jyoti, throw it off. Please, this is the time. So this is Krishna's final verdict. Pure devotees are more perfect. The first point is not there, and therefore we want you to write it down. If you are taking notes, it's always a good practice. Take notes. Mind is absorbed in the Lord. Second, Nitya Yukta Upasana, always engaged in devotional service. Third, and these two things, absorption and engaging in service, is being done with great transcendental faith. Shraddhaya Paraya. Krishna saying these are most perfect. So we know, in Krishna's opinion, who is the most perfect.
So now the point may arise that why Arjuna is suddenly asking this question. So as we discussed at the last chapter, it started with Arjun requesting Krishna to show the universal form. Krishna shows the universal form. Krishna shows his form as time or Kal Roop. Krishna also shows the four-armed form, and then finally Krishna comes back to the two-armed form. So all this has happened. So various forms were seen, and Arjun was getting bewildered because Arjun knew when Arjun was seeing all these forms, actually Arjun started feeling very, very disturbed and perturbed when he saw the universal form. And because he was so disturbed, and he started thinking simultaneously that I'm not able to appreciate this form. I'm not able to connect with this form, though this is majestic and wonderful, but I'm not able to connect with this form. Because why? Because I like that personal form of Krishna. I like that two-armed form of Krishna. I like that original form of Krishna. So then he is asking these questions, which is better, because he already has an inclination. So he was hoping to hear this answer which Krishna gives in this verse, where he says that such devotees are most perfect. So these pure devotees who are most perfect, they are actually nitya yukta upasate. Nitya means always. So they are always engaged in devotional service. Sometimes they hear some kirtan or bhajan or some class or some instructions from Bhagavad Gita. Sometimes they read books, sometimes they attend classes, sometimes they chant Hare Krishna, sometimes they cook for Krishna, sometimes they wash for Krishna, clean the temple for Krishna. So all various activities, what we have discussed in Navavidhi Bhakti, they are engaged in all these variety of services just for the pleasure of Krishna. So these devotees, Krishna is telling here that these devotees are most perfect. Easy way to perfection by constant engagement in Krishna conscious activities. So we have to see whatever we do, can we do it for Krishna? Can we gradually bring Krishna in each and every aspect of our life? And when we attain that, then that is perfection. Yetva aksharam anirideshyam avyaktam parayupasate sarvatra gamachintyam cha kutastham achalam dhruvam sanniyam yendriya gramam sarvatra samabuddhayah te prapnuvanti mameva sarvabhuta hite rataha.
So Arjun is very, very happy to hear the devotional service is superior, but he's wondering what does an impersonalist attain? Who's renouncing everything, who's trying to fully connect, which is very difficult to connect. We'll see in future verses, the upcoming verses, where it is very, very difficult to progress on the path of impersonalism. So Arjun wants to know, okay, very nice, devotees are most perfect, but then what happens to those who are very inspired by the impersonal form? And therefore Krishna begins to actually preempt that question and answer it for Arjun. Those who fully worship the unmanifest, that which lies beyond the perception of the senses, the all-pervading, inconceivable, unchanging, fixed, and immovable, the impersonal conception of the absolute truth. By controlling the various senses and being equally disposed to everyone, such persons engage in the welfare of all, at last achieve me. So first, what are they trying to connect to is explained in the beginning. And then later Krishna says that what they have to do to achieve it. So some of the qualities or the characteristics of impersonal conception of the absolute truth, it is unmanifest, which means it is not available to our senses. We have knowledge gathering senses, right? These are all inputs. Like for the computer, there is keyboard and there is a mouse, right? So these are all inputs into the computer. Similarly, we have these knowledge gathering senses which are input to the mind, right? So impersonal Brahm or absolute truth, impersonal conception of absolute truth, there is no input. So it is unmanifest. It is beyond the sense perception. We cannot see, we cannot hear, we cannot touch, we cannot taste, we cannot smell. It is all pervading. We know that the entire spiritual worlds, material worlds are all situated in the impersonal conception of the Lord. It is inconceivable. Inconceivable means it is beyond the capacity, beyond logic. We cannot apply some logic to understand this. It is unchanging, it is fixed, it is immovable. So all these are the qualities of impersonal conception. Now please tell me, is it easy to understand such a thing? Right? So it is very, very difficult. And that's why
even to understand the characteristics itself is so difficult.
Yeah. So that is
there
why
are so many points, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 points are written. to understand the meaning of these 7 points itself is so difficult. So how do we understand the impersonal conception?
Yeah. And so one, it is very difficult. And if you notice this picture which is there, actually, I wanted to change it more, but then because we'll not be able to understand, that's why I kept some little bit Krishna. So I'm sure you would have seen this image earlier also, because you used this particular image earlier where there is Krishna. He's in the forest. He's herding cows. On the left hand, he is holding the stick, the cow herding stick. In the right hand is on his hip. He's standing in a Tribhanga form. And there is this Brahma Jyoti, which is effulgent, which is manifesting, which is coming out of his transcendental form. So this is the impersonal Brahman of Brahma Jyoti. What is Brahma Jyoti? Brahma Jyoti is the transcendental effulgence which emanates from the spiritual form of the Lord. So actually, even the Lord is not visible. So those who are aspiring for this, their search ends with the Brahman effulgence. Right? So this is the characteristic. And what is the process of worship?
So the process of worship is again very difficult because a person has to control various senses. Now, controlling senses is one of the most difficult aspect of spiritual life, because our senses are like wild horses. They want to run in different directions. We have so many senses, and because of the senses we get various desires, and then we start running behind those desires. So here Krishna is telling that process of worship is one, control over various senses. So if you remember, in chapter number 6 we discussed in detail as how a person has how to sit and how to meditate and how to focus the senses, so that the senses do not wander here and there. The second point is by being equally disposed to do all and by engaging in welfare of all. So such a person does not, he is basically free from the dualities of life. So he does not consider some people as friends and some as enemies. Some is good and some are bad. So dual things, it does not exist. He is samadarshina. He sees equal to everyone and he wants everyone's welfare. So that is how he has to, these are the things which he has to practice. So this is the process of worship. And what is the destination? So if a person understands Brahma and he performs this process to worship, so the final destination, Krishna says, with great difficulty ultimately achieve the same goal, Sri Krishna. So he may take many births, birth after birth after birth, repeated birth, bahunam janmanamante, many births, and then finally such a person achieves the same goal, which is the Supreme Lord Krishna in his Brahma Jyoti aspect, not even in the complete personal feature, because they do not have that desire. So they do not have any relationship with the Supreme Lord. They achieve the Supreme Lord as the Paramatma, Brahma realization, or the Brahma effulgence.
Brahma Jyoti.
Brahma Jyoti.
So imagine so much trouble and they receive, of course they are transcendental, but they receive just partial realization of the Lord. Right? So it is like, if you'll ask me logically, why would somebody look for this is beyond me.
It's like spiritual suicide. The acharyas say that.
Yeah.
Because beyond that, they cannot get into any relationship with Krishna. We will be discussing those aspects.
Actually, most of these people have the conception that this material world is so troublesome. I want freedom from this, so much trouble. Let me get liberated, right? Let me finish my existence. Let me finish myself, So of course, if I commit suicide, I do not die. I change bodies, and that is very sinful. So these translators understand that I cannot just kill my body and gain liberation. So they will perform these various processes which are mentioned by Krishna, thinking that finally when they get liberation, they will not have any existence like the Buddhists think, or the impersonal think, okay, then I'll be in liberated state. So what happens is the living entity moves from the material world, goes out and becomes situated in the Brahman effulgence. All it is experiencing is the Brahman effulgence. For how long? 1 minute, 1 year, 100 years. He experienced that for eternity. Now we may say, okay, so what? But we need to understand that the soul is active by nature. Soul remains active always, whether we are awake or we are asleep. Soul is always active. Soul is the active principle, and it goes and remains situated in the Brahman effulgence, eternally active in the transcendental light. And that's all. Nothing to engage in, nothing to act.
Actually, that is the problem with the process, that all what they want is escape from this material world. They are not looking for any relationship. They don't believe that any happiness exists. They are looking for peace.
They're not looking for relationship because all relationship gives pain in the material world. So they want no material, no relationship. They do not know that relationship with the Lord is transcendental and all blissful.
क्लेशो अधिकतरस्तेषाम् अव्यक्ता सत्चेतसाम् अव्यक्ता हि गतिर्दुःखम् देहवद्भिरवाप्यते. For those whose minds are attached to the unmanifested, impersonal feature of the Supreme, advancement is very troublesome. To make progress in that discipline is always difficult for those who are embodied. So Krishna is telling here, if you can see, we have highlighted two things in red color. One, Krishna says advancement is very troublesome. So it's a troublesome process. And then Krishna again says it is very difficult or always difficult for those who are embodied. So embodied means people like us who have the body. So when we have this body and we try to attain Krishna through this process of unmanifested impersonal realization, then that process is extremely troublesome. Now, Krishna himself is giving this verdict or this opinion, so we must value that because the Lord himself is telling that. So he is telling that there are two paths, and out of which he himself is saying that this path is very, very difficult.
So this point which we were speaking earlier is just in a graphic form so that you can understand. So one side is this impersonal Brahman effulgence, which we cannot see, we cannot taste, we cannot touch, we cannot hear, we cannot smell, right? So imagine the senses are restless, eye wants to see a form, ear wants to hear something nice, the nose wants to smell something nice, the touch wants to feel something very soft and wonderful, and the tongue always wants to taste something tasty. And if this impersonalist, he is trying to perform his sadhana, so he has to restrict all the senses. No, one should not hear, because by hearing the mind will get agitated and my mind will go away from impersonal conception. I should not smell anything nice, I cannot see anything nice, I should not touch anything nice, right? So we understand. So all these inputs into the mind are restricted. And we also know one thing, empty mind is devil's workshop. Right? So we understand the uphill task which is in front of the impersonalist. And after so much trouble, Krishna is saying that the path is difficult, and at the end what he receives is also very meager. And on the other hand, we see this beautiful picture which is again, we saw it some time back and again. So here Srila Prabhupada established beautiful deities of Krishna, Balram and Sri Vrindavan Dham. So for a devotee, it is all bliss. The process is blissful, the life is blissful, and he continues that blissful life even after leaving the body and going to the spiritual world. So all his senses are actively engaged in Krishna service. His senses are engaged, his mind is naturally controlled. So many devotees in today's world, how many people are following the regulative principles? For how many of them it is possible to follow the regulative principles? Actually, Srila Prabhupada, when he went to the West, he was thinking this. Who will agree to follow devotional service? The moment I will say no meat eating, Arey Baba, they eat meat 3 times a day. Their breakfast is meat, their dinner is meat. Who will listen? No illicit sex. Arey, everybody is involved, especially when Prabhupada, when the hippie movement was so strong. Unrestricted sex life. Who will listen? Right? So these all regular people, who can imagine how this mind can be controlled? But by devotional service, right from same group of people who are engaged in all kinds of activities, Prabhupada brought them out. And Prabhupada gave them the process where the senses were controlled, mind was controlled, and everything was dedicated in service of Krishna. So, and then it became natural for them to follow the regulative principles.
So here we have listed the path of impersonalist, like what all he does, the Gyan Yogi or the impersonalist, vis-a-vis the Bhakti Yoga. So this is how the question was there at the beginning by Arjuna. So we have like gathered all the points so that we become very clear internally, we get completely convinced as why Krishna is saying what he's saying. So Jnana Yoga, it is an indirect process. So Krishna says that both the processes ultimately reach to Krishna, but Jnana Yoga is an indirect process. It's a long process. It's a troublesome process. It's a tedious process. Whereas Bhakti Yoga is a direct process, because the day we start following Bhakti Yoga, the first thing we say is Hare Krishna. So we are saying Krishna and we are connected with Krishna. So it's that direct a process. The second one, the Jnana Yoga, depends on our own endeavor. So the person who has to control his senses. So now he has to depend on himself, on his strength to capture his senses, to gather his senses, to not let his senses go here and there. Whereas the Bhakti Yoga, Krishna delivers devotee from Maya, because this person, now we are not telling you not to use your senses. What Prabhupada is telling us, or what the Acharyas are telling is, use your senses in the service of Krishna. So if I want to eat something tasty, something very nice, I cook it nicely with lot of love and devotion, offer it to Krishna, and then I eat that. So that becomes prasad. So I don't have to control my tongue. Little control is required in the sense that I'll eat only what I offer to Krishna.
So she's getting that and he's not getting.
Yeah, so she's getting that. So we offer and that is what we get. So that is, and similarly, if I want to sing, so there is no problem. What do I sing? I sing some bhajan, kirtan or glorification, any verses from Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam. So if I'm doing that in any raga, it is not necessary that you have to sing in a particular like Indian classical music only. So we can sing in any raga which sounds sweet to the ears, and we can offer it to Krishna. So like that, all our senses, we are directly engaging in Krishna's service. Hence, Krishna delivers the devotee from Maya. Krishna gives complete protection. The third point, for a Jnana Yogi to perfect himself, he must perform little bit of bhakti. If there is no bhakti at all, then he cannot attain perfection. Because if there is no bhakti, then he will become an offender. He would offend the personal form of the Lord. So such a person never attains perfection. So for a Jnana Yogi, a mixture of bhakti is must, whereas for Bhakti Yogi, it is pure bhakti. So no other process. Jnana karma adi anavratam. It is free from Jnana yoga, karma yoga, etc. It is only pure bhakti. The next one, Jnana Yogi, it is difficult to conceive the inconceivable. So we were discussing in the previous verse that how it is so very difficult to conceive someone whom I have neither seen nor heard nor smelled nor felt. So like all of these senses, I cannot gather any knowledge. Plus whatever knowledge is there in the Vedantas, everything is in Sanskrit. So I need to learn, understand, like so much of taxing my brains, and yet no guarantee that I can actually think. Whereas for a Bhakti Yoga, it is easy to relate because Krishna is present. So like when we go to the temple, like please come to ISKCON Chennai, we are open today. So if you go to ISKCON Chennai temple, and you will see the beautiful gorgeous form of the deity, and immediately we start appreciating the clothes they are wearing and the jewelry they are wearing and Krishna's smile and everything. So there is no difficulty in conceiving. He is right there in front of us. And the last point here, that the Jnana Yogi, he does not have any relationship with the Lord. So as we were discussing, he does not want any relationship because he feels that the relationships are the source of misery. So he doesn't want any relationship. Whereas Bhakti Yogi, we have already discussed that there are 5 primary rasas in which a person can connect with Krishna. There are also 7 secondary rasas. So there are so many variety of relationship which a person can actually have with Krishna.
So in terms of realization, of course, Jnana Yogi or this impersonalist, he is aspiring for Brahman, Brahma Jyoti, whereas the devotee is aspiring for Bhagavan. So now it's the same person. Bhagavan, Supreme Lord Krishna is the same person, and he can be perceived either as Nirgun or as Sagun. Many people make this mistake because there's a point that is Bhagwan Sagun? No. Bhagwan cannot be Sagun. Well, Sagun, if we take as the material qualities of Sattvagun, Rajagun, Tamogun, then that is correct. Bhagwan is not influenced by these material modes. In fact, he is the master of these modes. So, but Bhagwan is Sagun. He has transcendental, beautiful form, lotus-like eyes, beautiful smile, charming, and his qualities of Bhakt Vatsal, the most glorious of all qualities. So Krishna has so many wonderful qualities and attributes. So he's Sagun. But if we don't want to see that, if we want to, we want to be away from these Sagun, the qualities of the Lord, then what will remain is Nirgun, without quality. So that is the Brahman effulgence. So I hope this distinction is clear. So these Brahmavadis or the impersonalists, they cannot perceive any opulence. Of course, they don't want to, they are not interested. And whereas Bhagwan is the possessor of all the opulences, we saw in the second chapter how the Parashar Muni gives this definition that Bhagwan, he is the possessor of all the 6 opulences to unlimited capacity. And the Brahmavadi or the impersonalist, he always runs the risk. He may try and fail because he's doing it on his own strength. And he may not realize the Brahman effulgence because it's so difficult. And then in the next life, he may try. And at the end of his life, he may be told, try again. And then he takes another birth. So, but for devotee, the success is guaranteed because Krishna himself is saying they are most perfect. And Krishna is saying that I will take you back. I guarantee your swift deliverance. We will see in the future verse. And then in the Brahmavadis or the impersonalists, they realize only the first 2 aspects, Sat and Chit aspects, the eternality and the knowledge. Of course, the living entity is then aware completely that I am not this body, I am spirit, soul, and he is aware of the Brahman effulgence, right? So he realizes the Sat and Chit, but then there is no Anand. Right? So that's why when sometimes we used to ask people, what is the goal of life? Yeah, I want to be peaceful. There is so much problem in life. Just peace. I just want peace. Please give me peace. Shanti. Right? Actually, that is not goal of life. We are all Sat Chit Anand. We are actually all looking for enjoyment and happiness. Right? And that is what we realize when we realize Bhagwan, because Bhagwan is the embodiment of Sat, Chit and Anand, eternality, knowledge and bliss. Right? So that's how there is such stark difference between the impersonalist and the personalist. Why we are spending so much time here? So that we become personalists. And we don't have any impersonal inclinations.
So that we become smart worker. So don't be a hard worker, be a smart worker. Choose the easy way, the right way. So as we can see here, 2 paths are shown. One is such a crooked one and one is a straight line. So if we just avoid straight because it is so easy. I'll not take this path because it is so easy. So that shows that we are less intelligent. So Krishna is telling here, most perfect devotional service. The form of the Lord, although represented by material qualities like stone, wood, etc., is not actually material. Remember, Lord is non-different from his deity form. So we were talking about personalists, and personalists connect to Krishna through the deity form. So this deity form is actually non-different from Krishna.
With folded hands, I would like you to realize this point, that how fortunate we are that we have this wonderful Bhagavad Gita, we have wonderful association of Srila Prabhupada, that we can understand this point. So many major religions of this world, they reject the deity worship. They do not have that basic or sufficient knowledge and intelligence to understand that if Lord is all powerful, that where does the stone come from? Where does the wood come from? They all come from the Lord. They are all energies of the Lord. So if Lord wants, he can manifest himself in his energy. What is the difficulty? Right? So Vedas are if you'll ask me, Vedas are the most perfect Why? Because they are directly manifesting from the Lord. Lord has given them to us. So Bhagavad Gita is the manual for our life. So if there is a system in Vedic literature, there's a system where we can make the Vedas reveal the form of the Lord. Vedas reveal that how we can worship the Lord, because Krishna we are still not able to see with our eyes or with, so how do we serve him? So Vedas give us a way. Well, there is this particular form of the Lord. You take certain prescribed materials like metal or stone or wood or paint, and then you make the form of the Lord, and then you worship. And worshipping, all our senses, mind, intelligence, everything is engaged in their service. So if you see, the Sanatan Dharma is actually the most perfect.
ये तो सर्वाणि कर्माणि मयि सन्न्यस्य मत्परः अनन्येनैव योगेन मां ध्यायन्त उपासते तेषामहं समुद्धर्ता मृत्यु संसार सागरात् भवामि न चिरात् पार्थ मय्यावेशितः चेतसा. But those who worship me, giving up all their activities unto me and being devoted to me without deviation, engaged in devotional service and always meditating upon me, having fixed their mind upon me, O son of Pritha, for them I am the swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death. So this is Krishna's promise.
Hari Bol, Hari
We
Bol,
may
Hari Bol.
feel that Krishna has spoken something similar in the previous chapters also. So yes, as we said, that this is a summary of the middle 6 chapter, rather middle 5 chapters. So yes, Krishna has made this point, and here he is emphasizing on certain aspects, and then he says that he is the swift deliverer from the ocean of birth. So Krishna is giving here a simple and easy path of personalist. He is actually explaining what it means to be a personalist, like what do they do and what is their destination. So in the last 3 verses, we were discussing about the process for impersonalist and their destination. Here, Krishna is talking about the personalist. So he says that such people, one, they give up all their activities unto me. So it is not that they don't do any activity, but all the activities they do for Krishna's pleasure. So what is happening here is, the principle is that the mind is completely fixed on devotion to Lord Krishna. So being devoted to me without deviation and engaged in devotional service. So engaged in devotional service, which means that one can do any work but for the pleasure of Krishna. Their desire is, or their life's only mission and desire and satisfaction is somehow or other serve Lord Krishna. So like how we see Arjun here standing on the battlefield, initially we heard in chapter 1 how he just did not want to fight, how he was ready to be killed, how he was ready to give off the weapons and people, opposition can come and kill him. Yet Arjun would fight. Why he fights? He is fighting as a devotional service. So the only desire for such Ananya Bhaktas is to please the Supreme Lord. And the process is very simple for them. So they always meditate upon Krishna. Their mind gets fixed on Krishna. They do not deviate here and there. And the destination, Krishna guarantees that I am the swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death.
So we'll see that so many verses have constantly been talking about, Krishna is talking about the mind. So please, this is very, very important. From morning, what all our mind has thought, if you like to make a list, you will see that there are so many things the mind has thought of. How many times Krishna appeared? So here Prabhupada is saying,
GMC attend karna hai. Then Krishna appeared.
Yeah, or maybe chanting. Yeah, so one should fix his mind fully on Krishna in order to achieve him. The devotee does not desire any achievement other than pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we may say this is a tall order. This is a big call. It's so difficult for me. That's okay. We are not at this level. Our minds may not be fully absorbed in Krishna, or we may not have this desire that, my only goal of life is to please the Supreme Lord. Okay, no problem. Can we aspire for this? Can we make this as our goal? Today it's not possible, but one day or other, I want this to happen. I want my mind to be fully absorbed in the Lord. I want to desire nothing else other than pleasing the Supreme Lord. This is all that I want in my life. So can we at least aspire for this? Can we at least fix that as goal of my life? Then things will completely transform.
Krishna takes responsibility and promises swift delivery. Do we trust him enough to start the process of pure devotional service? So this is the question we must ask at the end of, or rather in the middle of 12th chapter, that Krishna himself so emphatically, he's talking about pure devotional service or ananya bhakti. So he's talking about that. Are we willing to do that?
Krishna is willing to take. Are you willing to go?
So coming to the second section, progressive stages of bhakti. Mayeva mana adhatsva, may buddhim niveshaya, nivasishyasi mayeva, atta urdhvam na samshayaha. Just fix your mind upon me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and engage all your intelligence in me. So Krishna is saying, Mai eva man adhatsva. Man means mind. And then he says, Mai buddhim niveshaya. Buddhim is intelligence. So fix your mind upon me, engage your intelligence on me, and thus you will live in me always without a doubt. So the 2 points, and then the result is you will live in me without a doubt. So this happens by performing devotional service exclusively of Krishna. So I do not get distracted by any other things. I do not do any other thing. I do only those activities which are pleasing to Krishna. And such a love for Krishna, such activity for Krishna I do because I feel in my heart so much of love for Krishna that I want to do more and more and more for him.
Spontaneously.
Spontaneously. Just like the mother takes care of the child spontaneously. The child is crying, mother does not think, oh, tomorrow I have my office and I'll get late if I wake up and I attend to the child, so let the baby cry and let me sleep. No. So it is very spontaneous for the mothers to tend to the child, whatever is the child need. So similarly, this is a devotee who, like on his own, thinks of Krishna, serves Krishna exclusively. So he does not think, okay, I am worshipping Krishna and I am worshipping so many others also. Krishna is important to me and so many other people are also important to me. Actually, for him, Krishna is exclusively important, and because others are also connected to Krishna, so he serves others also. So he does not serve his parents or his husband or wife just because they are parents or husband and wife, but because he sees them in connection with Krishna, that Krishna has given me the responsibility to take care of this child or to take care of my wife or to take care of my parents or to serve my husband. So with Krishna in center. And that is how his whole world revolves around Krishna. So such a devotee, Krishna says, you will live in me always without a doubt.
So this is the highest platform of devotional service. Verse number 8, which we just now discussed, defines and explains the highest devotee. Right? So this is actually our goal, what we have been talking about. So this chapter 12 is about goal fixing. Fixing our aspiration, what we really want to do. And if you really do not feel like aspiring for this, then you should pray to the Lord that you should begin to aspire for this.
Atha chittam samadhatum na shaknoshi mai sthiram abhyasa yogena tato mamechhaptum dhananjaya.
My dear Arjun, Dhananjay, O winner of wealth, if you cannot fix your mind upon me without deviation, my dear Arjun, O winner of wealth, if you cannot fix your mind upon me without deviation, then follow the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga, Abhyasa Yogena. In this way, develop a desire to attain me. So probably many of us would fall in this category, that if we are not able to fix our mind on Krishna, what to do. Krishna is telling here that we should engage in Abhyasa Yoga and we should follow the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga, and then gradually then that spontaneous love and affection, that desire to attain Krishna will originate within the heart.
So if one cannot perform devotional service without deviation, what do I do then? I do practice. So like anything, there are so many things in our lives which we see. Like these days, Olympics is going on in Japan and people have been practicing for many, many years. And then they go and they perform and sometimes they win also. Not necessary that just by practicing they are winning also. So sometimes they win also. So what they are doing is known as sadhana. Sadhana means practice for anything. Music, those of you who have learned some classical music, can be vocal or can be instrumental, we know that how much sadhana a person has to do for years and years of practice.
And only if they do regular sadhana, only then they can sing properly. Otherwise,
Yes.
it's not possible. Suddenly, 6 months no sadhana and then again catch a mic and something else will come out of the throat.
Yeah, so the whole point is that anything which we learn, so initially what we have is just a desire to learn that. Right? Like driving, like music, singing, like becoming an athlete, musician. So we have a desire. And to perfect that desire, how to become the best there, we start with practice. So Krishna is telling here that you should desire for 12.8. That fixing your mind and intelligence in Krishna without any deviation. So there you must fix, that is your desire. And to achieve that desire, because you are not there yet, so start with the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga. And talking about these regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga and sadhana, so I want to make an announcement here that very shortly, most likely Krishna willing around Janmashtami time, we would be launching a special mentorship program, a spiritual care program where we want to extend our care, personalized care to each one of you who's interested. So we estimated that all of you are interested because you survived us for so many months, our Gita Mastery course, Gita Made Easy course. So yes, so we want to come forward, step up and help you more to see that you are nicely following these regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga to assist you. So then our service becomes assisting you in your abhyas. So we are coming up with this and by next session we would be announcing the details. So before we formally launch the program, we will have one round of discussion with all of you individually. We will fix up some time and we will touch base with all those of you who are interested and then we will take it forward. So that is a big launch around Janmashtami.
Haribol. So what are the rules and regulations of bhakti? So Srila Prabhupada mentions that one, we need to understand this abhyasa yogin and the processes to purify. So right now our senses are looking for material enjoyment. Our eyes are looking for some beautiful form. Our ears are looking for some exciting music. So our senses are already contaminated because we have been doing bhog. We have been trying to enjoy this material world. So that's why these senses are impure. But by the process of Abhyas Yogena, the senses become purified. They no longer become attracted by these sense objects. The mind becomes purified. And the process, Prabhupada explains that the most important is guidance of a spiritual master, that we connect to a bona fide spiritual master, take guidance and mold our life accordingly. Rise early, because that's the time in mode of goodness, and that's how we practice our spiritual life. We visit temples, we offer the prayers, of course chant Hare Krishna, the Yuga Dharma, Hare Nam, Hare Nam, Hare Namaiva Kevalam, Kalau Nasteva, 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 Gatir Anyatha. In the age of Kali, there is no other way other than to chant the holy name, offer flowers to the deities, cook for the deities, honor prasadam, constant hearing of Bhagavad-gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. So the point is, like right now, those of you who are working, how many hours do you think of your job? How many hours do you think of your job? Maybe you're not a good example. Maybe we are thinking of a job, at least 10 hours we do a job, and another 3-4 hours, sometime off and on we think of a job. We discuss with our spouse of a job. How many hours?
Prasad is saying 13 hours.
13 hours.
Oh my God, 13 hours you work. Then how many hours you think? Thinking maybe even more.
He may say that while working, I'm not thinking. So in any case, so can we just... Aryan Malhotra says 0 hours. Well, I was going to say that if you're studying, then how many hours you think of your studies? So 10 to 12 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours. See, so 1/3 of our life, we are actually anyway absolutely disconnected. We do our jobs and we're just thinking of that. So the idea is that balance part of our life, or some part of our life, at least we should do regularly, dedicate for spiritual activities. So if part of our life is exclusively dedicated to spiritual activities, gradually the influence will grow and it will cover our entire 24 hours. Right? But that core practice has to be done. Like, for example, an athlete, if he wants to do well, there is some core practice that he needs to do. And then gradually, the whole life, his diet will be guided by his goals, athletic goals, his, even rest of his life.
Waking up, sleeping time.
Everything will get, yes, influenced by that. So if we have goal of verse 8, and if we begin to practice this, then, we can actually modify and change our consciousness. We can revolutionize our life, right? And what is the qualification? Who can do? Well, anyone can do. No caste, no creed, no barrier. Whether male or female, whether an adult or a child, anyone can do. The only important thing is that desire. And what is the result? Krishna assures you. Krishna assures all of us that we will achieve love of God. So that's what Krishna is willing to give us.
Bhakti Yoga is the purification of the senses. This way, the dormant, natural love for Krishna is revived.
So this is very, the love for Krishna is already embedded in our heart. Like we have the chips which are embedded in the motherboard, right? Similarly, love for God is embedded in our heart. It is dormantly, it is present, but it is dormant. It has to be revived, right? So Bhakti Yoga does that.
Abhyasapi samarthosi matkarma paramo bhava madartham api karmani kurvan siddhim avapsyasi. Abhyasapi asamartho asi. If you are disqualified for whatever reason, if you cannot practice what we were discussing, abhyas yogena, so if you are not able to do, which means Krishna is telling, okay, so if you are not able to follow 9th verse, so first he said 8th verse, and he said if you are not able to follow, then do the 9th. What is the 9th? Abhyas. Now he's telling if you cannot practice the regulations of Bhakti Yoga, then just try to work for me, because by working for me, you will come to the perfect stage. Mat karma paramo bhava. Do all work for me. So here it is, engage all external senses for working for Krishna. Basically work for Krishna. And then what will happen is when we start working for Krishna, so here we see in the picture, this is our ISKCON Chennai devotees. They are distributing prasadam, and we got a lot of volunteers also helping us out. So this is the picture from 2015 when there was floods in Chennai, and especially these slum areas were badly affected. So we would prepare big containers of khichdi, prasad and other prasad, and we would go and distribute. We were also distributing some bed sheets and other things. I mean, the basic utility things we were distributing. So when we started that, so many people came forward to be a volunteer for this cause, so they could connect with the cause. So if I tell them to chant Hare Krishna, they may not come. If I call them for a Gita mastery course, they may not come. But if I tell them, okay, we are going, like there is a old age home where we go regularly and do programs. So if I call them, okay, we need some volunteer, we are doing some big programs, so they happily come there. Or if we are organizing some cultural program there, so they come and then they do that. So the point is that they don't want to follow the regulation, the rules and regulations, but they still consider Krishna as supreme, and they want to serve in some capacities.
Yeah, or they may give donations.
They give generous donations. Yes. So they for them, chanting, take sankalpa for chanting, come and attend the class. So that that they don't feel so much the need as of now. So for them, Krishna is saying, then whatever activity you are doing, you do it for me. Because by doing that, they gradually come to 12.9. and then they come to 12.8. So with this, we have come to an end of today's session. In the next class, we will be completing chapter number 12 and this trimester as well. So hope that all of you remember, I have asked you that those of you who have not yet completed the quiz for chapter number 11 is supposed to write me an email now stating why you have not completed the quiz. Otherwise, alternatively, you can complete the quiz and send me a message, send me an email that you have completed. So kirti@studygita.com. I will look forward for your emails. So thank you all. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Bhagavad ki jai, Nidai Gaur Premanande, Hare Bol. We are available for few